This conference
So,
will now be recorded.
my name is Rich Maliaco. I'm one of the forecasters at the Weather Service in Glasgow. I'm here with Virginia Rux. We'll be both working through the presentation with you here today. Should take about 30 minutes to go through everything. I'll kind of go through the introduction, the first part here, and then Virginia will share her screen and go through the middle, and then we'll kind of wrap things up. And then we'll maybe take you through the certain things of the web page, some things to get started. But thank you for being here today and for your interest in CoCoRaHS. We are both very thankful you made time for us today, and like I said, hopefully we'll be able to get you through the training in about 30 minutes or so. If you can't see the presentation at the moment, please feel free to speak up, let me know. Hopefully everyone's able to see that, uh, or at least be able to hear me. So CoCoRaHS is a grassroots, nonprofit, community-based, high-density precipitation network. Volunteers comprise all ages, all kinds of backgrounds, not just folks that have an interest in weather, but just people who want to make a difference in the community. And it stands for Community Collaborative Rain, Hail, and Snow Network. Essentially, if it falls from the sky, we measure it and we report those uh, uh, data points daily, and it's just a great way to make a difference to the community. So again, we just measure precipitation. Quite simply, that includes hail, rain, and snow predominantly. Uh, and how does this work? Essentially, you need a couple of low-cost pieces of equipment to get started, either a ruler or a yardstick for snow, and a 4-inch diameter high capacity rain gauge. We do ask that everyone pick up the standard rain gauge just so that when we're looking at the reports coming in from our observers, that we're comparing apples to apples. If everybody's using the same kind of equipment, then it's easier to compare and standardize everything versus if everybody's using something different. And we'll talk about where, if you don't have a rain gauge, where you can get one kind of near the end. Um, so that's really all you need to get started. And also, it's very easy to sign up. So after you go through your training here today, on the website, there's a little button on the upper right-hand side of that web page, CoCoRaHS.org. It's an orange button that says Join CoCoRaHS, and if you click on that, you just go through a couple of steps, and what'll happen is a station will be set up at your location. So when you submit your reports, they'll then be sent to us, and we'll have that data to then be able to use to help us in warning verification or to send out for many other needs. We'll go through some of that here in just a little bit. But also, uh, in addition to just the ability to join CoCoRaHS through the web page, all of the reporting forms are on there, which we'll go through, as well as additional training opportunities as well. So why would you want to join CoCoRaHS in the first place? So for starters, precipitation is highly variable. We know, especially heading into uh, convective thunderstorm season, which is the emphasis of our talk here today. We're going to predominantly talk about rain and thunderstorm hail reporting. If you want a more focused conversation on winter weather and snowfall, check us out in the fall. We'll be doing a follow-up presentation. But you may know from living in Montana that you may pick up a heavy thunderstorm while your neighbor just across the street doesn't get anything at all. They may just be enjoying a sunny day. And so the radar that we have doesn't pick up everything. And so your reports help us to fill in those gaps. So data is highly variable from one location to the other. And also, rain gauges tend to be far apart, so the more observers that we have, the more we can fill in those holes. So whether you're an existing observer looking to maybe haven't sent in a report in a while and you're looking to pick things back up again, dust off the cobwebs, or maybe you're just somebody who's interested in checking out the program here today, we definitely love getting new observers because you help us to fill in that data network. Also, some measurements are not as reliable as others. You can see on the lower left-hand side of your screen, the snowbank up against the house there in the drift. You don't want to measure the snow in the drift, but it's also known that storm reports can save lives. If you send in your reports of large hail, or you see something and you send that into us, we can get that into our warnings or uh, just forecast information, and that has the ability for people. It really helps people out. So here's an example of on the web page, you'll be able to check out your report as well as compare it against some of your neighbors, and you can see what that looks like here. And you can see again, the more coverage we have, the better the data become. And it's not just us at the Weather Service that uses CoCoRaHS data. Again, we really emphasize that you're really helping out the whole community here, because whether you're an insurance adjuster, you work for mosquito control, or you're in research, or perhaps the State Drought Advisory Committee, there's just a number of sources that utilize CoCoRaHS reports. So going forward, we'll just talk very briefly here about what you need to get started. And quite simply, the first thing is just an application form done electronically today. We talked about that orange button up on the website. And if you know, maybe you're on the fence and you're thinking about it, but maybe you know somebody who's interested in CoCoRaHS or benefit from the program, send them this information, or get them in touch with us, and we can send them the training presentations, whether it's the recorded copy of what we're doing here today or some other supplemental information, and we can get them that training, and then they can sign up on the website there, and you'll provide your location through that form, and we'll create that station for you. And then just your commitment. We need your commitment to collect accurate data and willingness to get emails, check that spam folder. And in addition to getting emails from us at the Weather Service, trying to check in with you from time to time on your reports, sometimes you'll see a couple of new learning opportunities as well from us. And the other thing that will often happen, once your training is underway and your application is complete, then you'll get a station that looks just like the one shown to you before. This is an example of one in Plentywood up in Sheridan County. And there's a number of ways then that you can sign in and send in your reports, and we'll talk about that coming up here in section 2. So we're going to let Virginia now share her screen and kind of take things away for the next part here.
Hi there, hopefully you can see my screen all right. In this section, we will explain how and where to ideally place your new rain gauge. We will also explain how to measure rainfall, then how to safely observe and report hail. If you're interested in how to measure snow and liquid equivalencies, check out our winter training later this year, or check out the cold season training video on our National Weather Service Glasgow YouTube channel. Once you have your rain gauge, the absolute worst place to leave your rain gauge is in the box. Additionally, near a gutter or gutter spout will lend highly inaccurate readings, and we'd like you to enjoy your new weather instrument by collecting the best data possible. Other locations that may be easy to overlook when finding the best location for your rain gauge is with the gauge proximity to trees and structures. Avoid placing the rain gauge too close to the trees, where rain may miss the gauge or drip from the branches. The drip from the branches will skew your results. And although a deck is convenient, it's too close to the house. If the rain falls in an angle, the house can obscure the movement of the rain to the catch. So if you move to a more open area, keep in mind that you can incidentally place the gauge where a sprinkler, big or small, may influence the catch. Be aware that animals can disrupt your instrument and the contents within the gauge. And we mentioned in the last slide that a structure could block catching the rain from being caught as a barrier. Additionally, steep slopes can be a natural barrier that can artificially alter your catch. You'll be crying CoCoRaHS tears if you find these easily overlooked instances were inadvertently skewing your data. Finally, a solid fence is another location where a seemingly convenient and harmless placement could skew results. This is because a strong wind will hit the fence, artificially updrafting the precipitation and the wind, trying to move around this barrier and reduce what's actually caught in your rain gauge. Okay, so we covered all the ways our results can be off. Where in the world can I place my instruments? Here are a couple of ideal examples where the instruments are away from structures and other outside influences, slightly elevated from the ground and anchored from a post. Well, you might be thinking, this isn't practical. That's okay. Do your best with what you have. Consider the height and spatial distance that you have available to you where you live. In open areas, strive for a location that is twice as far away as the height of the object nearby. In developed areas, try to go with, like in neighborhoods, for example, try to go as far away from the objects as they are tall. If you have trees that could potentially influence your location, strive to put the gauge equal distance between each tree. Now that we think we have found a spot, consider how high off the ground we want the gauge. In open areas, about 2 feet off the ground is ideal, where wind influences will be reduced. In those developed locations, raising the gauge higher will have less influence from nearby obstacles, so approximately 5 feet off the ground will work. When the gauge is being secured to the post, set the rim above the post line, checking that the opening is level if you can, and if you can, bevel the top of the post. This will reduce any kind of splashback into the gauge. So now we're ready to roll. Rain is expected, and we're excited to start observing the rainfall at our location. We have some tips and reminders for measuring your rainfall. Consistency is key. We send our reports at any time, but the preferred time is at 7 a.m. Anytime between 5 and 9 a.m. is acceptable in order to make the CoCoRaHS map for the day. Did I mention that consistency is key for good data? Reading the gauge can be easy, but consistency is paramount. We will cover a few common situations you may encounter while taking observations. First, realize that your most common result will be zip 0, but it is still important to know when it doesn't rain. Please report those 0 days either in the daily form or through the monthly zeros form, which we will get to later in this training. Some days you'll only get a sprinkle, and in Northeast Montana, if it hasn't evaporated, you'll notice a drop or two that'll wet the edge of your gauge. You can enter this as a T for trace. You'll find that data needs to be entered in the hundredths of an inch. This is why the decimal place matters. It's easy to make mistakes, but try to be mindful of what the number you mean to report. There's a really big difference between 4/100ths, 4/10ths, and 4 inches. The numbers along the inner tube are your tenths of an inch. Each one of these tick marks over here with the numbers. The small tick marks between each tenth is 1/100th of an inch. In this example, we are four tick marks above a trace and below the 1/10th line. Therefore, we would report this as 0.04 or 4/100ths. As you gather more precipitation in the tube, Surface tension along the sides of the tube will begin to curve to the surface of the liquid. This curved lens shape is called the meniscus. Estimate your observations looking at the bottom of the meniscus. When you get more of a soaking rain, you could be moving higher up in the gauge to about 1/2 inch in this example. Be careful to report this as 0.5. Think of this as 50 cents to $1, where 1 inch is $1. Then once you reach 1 inch, you've filled the entire inner tube to the 1 inch line. Then when there are storm events that bring a real pouring of liquid over 1 inch, the rain will overflow into the outer part of the tube. Luckily, this high capacity rain gauge can hold up to 11 inches of rain. So great. Now, how do we measure all this water? First, pour out the initial inch of liquid out of the inner tube and begin keeping track of all your subsequent measurements. Be very careful. Use the funnel over the inner tube and slowly pour the contents of the outer tube into the inner tube. You don't want to accidentally spill over the edge by going too fast. All right, now take measurements and don't forget to jot them down as you make your way to the bottom of the inner tube. You don't necessarily need to fill that inner tube to the 1 inch line each time. Just make sure that you're keeping track of what you actually measure as you go. Here's an example of 4 separate measurements. When you add them all up together, you get a total of, in this example, 3.77 inches, or 3 inches and 77 hundredths. Sometime this summer, you'll probably experience a thunderstorm with hail. We will briefly look at reporting hail in the next couple slides. While hail is falling, please don't go outside. You can estimate the size from a safer location and report it to the National Weather Service or submit the report online. Once the storm passes and lightning is no longer a threat, you can safely go out and gather some hailstones. To get more accurate measurement, use a ruler. Hail is ice and it is summertime, so it could melt. You can try one of these hail pads. The only downside to using a hail pad is that making sure that it's secure when there's strong winds. Try to call in your observation to the local National Weather Service office or submit a hail report on the CoCoRaHS website as soon as you can. The online report will automatically forward to the National Weather Service, where the report can help with determining if a severe thunderstorm warning needs to be issued, or it serves as valuable feedback to verifying that the storm meets severe thunderstorm criteria. Knowing this information helps us very much. So in this next section, we will check out how we report our observations. We will introduce you the website, and there's now a cell phone app. So we'll go ahead and check out those items and all the different forms and how to record your observations. The CoCoRaHS website is easy to remember, just www.CoCoRaHS.org. This website is simple to use and is loaded with all kinds of interactive information. Assuming that you are now signed up and have a user login, look in the upper taskbar on the right that says Login and enter your username and password. Once you've successfully logged in, the screen will automatically take you to the daily precip report where you can enter your observations. Other clickable report form options are on the left-hand side with the daily precipitation report form at the top. Make sure you have the correct date and the time of observation. We generally report between 6 and 9 a.m. with the most common time being 7 a.m. Then on the next line, you would enter your rainfall total to the nearest 1/100th of an inch. Feel free to add comments about your observations or the weather. For example, you could comment about dense fog for 4 hours this morning, dew on the sides of the gauge, or periodic thunderstorms throughout the day. This information will be available to the public and is helpful for trying to understand what kind of weather was occurring or any additional understanding of how the precipitation fell. This top section, however, is where you will spend most of your time. The sections below are for when it snows on the ground and if you want to add additional information about the timing or intensity of precipitation or if flooding has occurred. Now you're ready to submit your data. Just click the button near the top. So there are different ways to view maps. There are 3 ways to click and view maps, including the reports for your area. At the top of the menu bar, you have this maps option, and it'll take you to several different types of maps. There's now a newer interactive map where when you click on this, it'll take you to a more modern looking map it's kind of similar to your Google Maps, where you can zoom in and zoom out and click on information as you need. Or the old-fashioned static map, where you can click on the map and then you can click on the state or county that you're interested in looking at. Each state has its own CoCoRaHS page even. You can get there by clicking the states button at the top menu bar and then select Montana. Here's what a map of the reports look like if you were to click near your location. The amount of precipitation you entered will appear at the right of the location, or right at the location on your map. So if you entered in a trace of precipitation at your location in Dawson County, when you go to Dawson County, you'll see exactly where that trace of precipitation took place. Other reports that you might be interested in submitting to us is hail, which we've covered, significant weather, that's including heavy rainfall, snow, or any kind of flooding. A monthly zeros report is helpful for if you don't submit a 0 for one day, you can just go in and submit all your zeros at once. There's a multi-day precipitation form that'll allow you to enter in your information in case you're on vacation. And then, of course, your daily precipitation form that you usually do. We covered a little bit about this hail report, but you're able to give a little bit of extra details. And everything that you'll need will be on the left side here. The significant weather form is useful for intense precipitation or flooding. This is also a form that will automatically be sent to the National Weather Service. And this kind of report can also help in issuing life-saving alerts. Here's what your monthly zeros form will look like. You just need to, you can select all your 0 precip days and then submit. Sometimes we go on vacation because, you know, we all have a life and it's okay to miss some days. What you can do though is if you know you'll be gone for a week, just take your reading when you return, and when you submit your information in this form, just make sure to add the date that you left and then the date that you read the precipitation and how much was in it. Another way to view other data is through a list format. You can view a list of your own reports at the My Data option, or you can look at like reports from around the state of Montana, and you would go further left where it just says View Data, and you can sort all this information by date, time, station number, station name, or amounts. Now for the cell phone app, this is sort of a newer a newer thing for CoCoRaHS, but it is definitely more appealing and more convenient for some people. If you go to the CoCoRaHS website, first you could either go to your app store and punch in CoCoRaHS, or you can go to the CoCoRaHS website via your web browser on your phone. And then looking on this right-hand side, you can select the appropriate device that you have to get to the app. Once you're downloaded on the app, you can enter, assuming that you've already joined and you have a username and password, you can enter in your username and password to log in. Once you're logged in, this is the page that will automatically appear. This main report here, and it's pretty simple to make sure that you've got your observation date in there correctly. Your observation time is pretty automatic if you have a preferred time. Otherwise, it's just a matter of selecting the current time or whatever time you may have. And then you can enter in your amount of precipitation to the hundredths of an inch. And then you also have just a simple toggle button if you need to enter in a trace of precipitation. If you click on one of these detail options or more details, it'll take you to an area that's useful during the winter time for your snow. And then if there's any kind of flooding information that you need to send, this is where you would go. And of course, if you have additional notes to talk about what the weather was like, go ahead and add those in there before submitting. All your options are going to be available on these icons at the bottom. So your multi-day report is still another simple place to go and put your first date and the date emptied in here, along with the observation time and the precipitation that you'd like to report. You also have access to your history information, whether it be your daily history or your multi-day history, and double tap on a report if you needed to make any kind of edits. The final option in this app is the other section, and all these buttons will just link you to the CoCoRaHS website via your browser on your cell phone. So for section 4, I'm going to hand this back off to Rich. Thank you.
Hopefully everyone is able to see my screen here as we do the wrap up. And again, thank you very much for your time here today. As you're thinking about your involvement in CoCoRaHS, or whether it's that you're a current observer and you want a refresher, hopefully you found some things here today that you picked up. Maybe you weren't aware of the app, and it's just another way that's more convenient for you to send in your observations. Or if you're somebody that's new, that's exploring the program, hopefully you picked up something that you can take back with you as you think about signing up. So let's talk about some frequently asked questions. So the first thing that people ask is, do I have to be home every single day to participate in the program, CoCoRaHS? We just
Rich,
encourage
excuse me?
Yes.
I don't see your screen.
You do not see my screen. Let me see. Oh, well, thank you for letting me know. Let's go to share. Thank you for letting me know, Virginia. Hopefully that has changed. Hold on, I don't.
I see you
Let me
now.
see. You see me now. Okay, so we're gonna
Yes.
go back into the presentation and let's see if we can try this again. So the first question that folks tend to ask is, do I have to be home every day? As Virginia said, we recognize that people have a life and they go on vacation. We just say report when you're able to. If you're gone, and you can make use of that multi-day total. And also we mentioned that for consistency, we try to get folks to submit your report around 5 to 7 a.m., 9 a.m. in that range. But, this is really flexible. If it makes the difference between whether or not you can join CoCoRaHS and you are only able to submit in the afternoon, go ahead and send in that report at 4 o'clock. And so realistically, this is something that's flexible that can work around your schedule. And more data is always better than less data. And in fact, we were talking about those zeros, the monthly zeros, you can imagine right now where we are in a drought situation, how useful that data can be. So think about that as you go here. So then the other thing is, what if I don't have a good spot for my rain gauge? Virginia went through some of those best practices. Few people have it perfect. Just do the best you can, and feel free to send us a photo if you have any questions about your spot. So morning dew is not something that is typically reported. You can put that in the comment section. We generally just want something that comes from the clouds, like rain, hail, or snow. And of course, the longer you send in your data, the more reliable that data become. You almost get a mini climatology. If you've reported for many years, you can kind of get a sense of what's normal, what's extreme. But even if you can just put in one season just to see if it's for you, I think most people seem to enjoy it. And so that is basically the end of the presentation. I do want to very quickly show you, again, Virginia went through some of the reporting forms and how to log in and all of that, but I just want to remind you that when you want to sign up, let's say that you're ready to go and you want to send us your sign-in form, all you do is you hit that Join CoCoRaHS, you go into your location, and then you just give us some information about your location, who you are, and then what happens is Virginia and I will see that, and we'll be able to follow up with you and help you get started with the program. And if you are somebody that's needing to pick up a rain gauge, CoCoRaHS.org has some resources for you. So the first is, if you go to the right-hand side of the webpage, scroll down just a bit, Weather Your Way is one, and then there is this other button here that says Additional Rain Gauge Suppliers. So you click on that and you can see a whole list of places that provide rain gauges that can be useful for CoCoRaHS. So that is the end of the planned part of the presentation here today. I'm going to stop the recording.